Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wildstorm Addiction. This is episode 8, and we're going to be covering comics from the weeks of June 30th to July 14th. And we're going to start off with some Wildstorm news. Just want to remind everybody, we do talk about spoilers during our podcast, but all our written reviews are spoiler-free unless otherwise noted on the site. I want to give a special shout out to our international listeners. According to our download reports, we've got people who've downloaded from Chile, China, the United Kingdom, Australia, France, Spain, Canada, and the Russian Federation. And of course, a big thanks to all our listeners in the U.S. See, Ben, we've gone international now.
All right. That's pretty cool.
Or you could say we've gone planetary.
Oh.
Hey, if you're a Wildstorm fan and you're listening to this, you better get that. So, speaking of getting that, there's lots more Wildstorm digital comic offerings this week. As many of you know, DC finally launched all their digital comic offerings. And this week, courtesy of Comixology.com, we've got several new things online. And each of these are ranging between 99 cents to $1.99. We've got Supernatural Origins number 1. We've got the entire Dante's Inferno 6-issue mini available now. We also have the entire original Fringe miniseries. And that has number 0, which is actually for free. Mirror's Edge just had number 1 through 5 listed. For some reason, number 6 wasn't on there. But they also had number 0 of that one for free. There's now the first 3 issues of Victorian Undead. There's Planetary and the Authority crossover. Ruling the World one-shot is up there. And from the World's End titles, they had each of the first ones, and now they've got Wildcats number 2, Gen 13 22, Stormwatch PhD 14, and the Authority number 2. And this was a cool surprise. They actually put up Wildstorm Universe number 0, which was the free giveaway from last summer's San Diego Comic-Con, and it also came out in comic shops about a week later. And it's written by our very own Chris Stryker of the Higher Authority website, which if you've never been, it's simply just type in the authority.ws. There is no www. And that's also for free. That's basically a primer for World's End that you can catch up on what's been going on in the Wildstorm universe the last couple of years. So if you're wondering where to start, that's the perfect issue to start right there. It's Wildstorm Universe number 0, and it is free. And one last thing, I just want to say thanks to Titanthrope for coming over to our site and leaving a comment on Authority number 24, the written review. We want to hear more of you who are coming on. Just let us know your thoughts about the issues, and we'll come try to discuss it with you. So anyway, that's all we got in the news. So let's move on to the reviews.
All right. Up first, we have The Authority number 24, and that's written by Tom Taylor with art by Al Barrianuevo. The Authority 24 just gets right into it from the last issue that we read, which was titled Mondragon. And, the Wildstorm Universe core titles have been doing status reports to catch any new readers up on what's been happening. Well, this one doesn't do that. It just starts right off. And this issue starts right off with River. Now, River is the new Century baby that was introduced a few issues ago and was, brought onto the carrier by the High, and he was protecting him. Well, River's kind of stealing the show in this issue, and he's running the ship and what's going on, because he's trying to fight back this force that's out in space that the carrier has run into, and it's Mondragon, and it's this energy. He can't even explain what it is. It's beyond his grasp, and he even says, "I don't have the words. I'm only 10 years old." And he can't even explain the magnitude of what this being is. I mean, we see this being shown to us as this big, octopus monster of, shipwreckage graveyard out in space, kind of encapsulating the carrier. And on the inside of the carrier all the other heroes are dealing with the Aegean, who we now learn is also being controlled by Mondragon. So, River decides to connect with Angie, the engineer, and she didn't even know that this could be possible, but kind of like in Avatar, he grabs one of her dreads, one of her pieces of hair, and basically sticks it into his temple and says, "We're networked." And he starts running the show and basically, I guess, is kind of taking control of the carrier. It's pretty cool. We learn a lot about the ship and what it's doing to try to attack him. Well, I mean, he's kind of controlling the ship through Angie. And then we flip over to the other heroes who are trying to attack the Aegean, who has entered and killed a bunch of people. Jack's got point for this team, but doesn't really know what to do. I mean, he has some things up his sleeve, we'll just say. He is taking some notes from Angie and Christine in the deck of the ship, but he's definitely running the show down here. Other than that, he doesn't really know what's outside of the ship. He doesn't realize that there's more going on than just this Aegean. He doesn't realize that Mondragon is actually this big thing outside of the ship. So Mondragon actually starts attacking the ship, and the whole ship is shaking. The Aegean is smiling. He knows what's going on. And River is freaking out. He's been sucking in all this data that the carrier has and just unleashes this spam attack on Mondragon, which I don't know why data would frustrate it, but it apparently does.
Everybody gets frustrated by spam.
Yeah. And apparently,
beans.
Yeah, apparently terabytes and petabytes of spam drives the thing nuts. It actually says zettabytes of information, which is a lot, I suppose.
It starts with the letter Z, it must be.
Yeah, right. We go back to Jack and the other heroes who are attacking the Aegean, and Jack is making Flint take point, and she's basically like, I'm not indestructible. At least my brain isn't indestructible, and this guy can kick all of our asses. She's not too happy with the idea of just rushing this guy, but that's basically what Jack wants to do, is rush this guy and, kind of pile on him, and hopefully it'll slow him down, which it doesn't really at all.
Yeah, that reminded me of the scene from the original Ghostbusters. It's like, get her! Like, get her, Ray? That was your big plan?
Right. River tries getting the ship to attack Mondragon. I mean, we keep going back and forth between the team upstairs and the team downstairs, or the team at the control deck and the team fighting the Aegean. But basically, nothing's really working. They're getting their butts handed to them, so to speak. Finally, Jack has the smart idea to use Roxy to have her gravity powers to force the Aegean 4 floors down, because Jack knows that he has his, box item, and we're finally going to get that big reveal that's been building up for issues upon issues. And it's interesting to note that, he actually tells Roxy that, you're not a child anymore, do this, because she's unsure that she can control her powers to get him to go down a specific number of levels. She thinks that, she'll just send him through the floor and won't be able to stop him. So here's another instance where we see, another Gen 13 member stepping up to the plate to, be an adult, basically, and, do what they need to do to get things done and save the day. So she sends them down and thankfully gets it to the 4th floor, or 4 floors down, and we see the Aegean actually go up to to the door, which is the room that Jack has his box in. And he senses what's in there. I don't know how, but he does. I guess it's an electronic thing. And Jack basically says, we got to get him in there. This is how we're going to beat this guy. So everybody flat out attacks him, gets him into the room. Jack jumps on top of the box. And what does he do? He pulls out this wicked looking gun that wraps it around his arm. And we quickly learn that it's an EMP, and he takes out the Aegean. For how long? Well, that's to be determined, I guess, next issue. But we go back to, River, and he's spent. He can't handle it anymore, trying to attack Mondragon, and the High is not too happy about it. They realize that they don't have another choice right now. We go back down to the other crew, and Grifter has a few words to say about what Jack was hiding, and I think he's a little upset that he had it on there and had it in there and didn't really tell anybody about it, because it's basically an EMP, and it could have taken down the entire carrier anytime that Jack felt that was needed. And that's a little too much power for one person to hold, I think. And I think there's still some mystery behind that, why Jack had it and what this thing can do, because we've never seen it before, ever. Going back to the flight deck, the High makes his, final words to River and Christine and the engineer, and basically is going to fly off to save the carrier and everybody in it. And since Mondragon was weakened by River and his spam, or whatever else he was throwing at it, the High flies off into the heart of the Mondragon, and it's assumed that, he blows it up, or at least slows it down enough to let the carrier get away, and the High is no longer. Now, we've seen the High go through a lot of things, so we can't say that he's dead for sure, but that's what's implied. And this is the end of the book. And we get a little bit of the status update text that we normally get at the end of the book instead of the beginning. Joe, what did you think of this issue?
Well, for me, like I said about the last issue, I was expecting something different with Mondragon. So the idea of him is cool, but I never wrapped around this character very much. I mean, it is a cool shot to see how big it is compared to the Authority's carrier. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of hard to wrap your mind around, because it's like you're looking at the carrier and like trying to think of the people in there, and it's just like this thing is massive. It's like its own solar system. So, but yeah, it was pretty interesting, like you said, that River pretty much attacks it with spam, because he's been collecting this data in his head, for 10 years, because he's 10 years old, and just releases all at once. And yeah, it's cool that they kept the Aegean, as powerful as he's supposed to be. And I gotta say, for as much as I like Grifter, sometimes I really question his choices, though. There's a scene where he jumps on the Aegean's back and starts shooting him in the neck. And I'm like, dude, this is why you died in Captain Atom Armageddon. Stop doing stupid stuff. You got off easy this time. You just got bitch slapped across the room, But just like Flint, if Flint is worried about herself, and she is pretty, near invulnerable, you don't need to be jumping on the back of the dude who's, as powerful as Majestic.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Deathblow is hurt.
Yeah. Oh, Deathblow, I'm pretty sure got his neck broke. There's a big old crack, sound effect, and I'm like, yeah, it's a good thing he can come back as long as there's a piece of him left, But no, it was a good issue. Yeah, I did like the thing about Roxy. It is cool that the Gen 13 kids are being asked to step up, and this is not the time to be afraid. And it was cool to see that with Grunge over on Wildcats, and to see that with her here.
Exactly.
And another thing, I'm sorry, my man Grifter, I'm just questioning everything he's doing in this issue. the scene, the let's get him scene. Grifter's just jumping, throwing a grenade at him, and I'm like, that's just so funny to me. Like, dude, I don't know. For those of you who play City Heroes out there, Grifter would be a blaster class, and everybody knows that blasters stay in the background and shoot from far away. You don't rush in with the tanks and the scrappers because you're gonna die.
Meanwhile, he's throwing a grenade that's like 2 feet from everybody else.
Yeah, because I play. Anyway, it's not smart, and I don't know what he's doing. Just want to slap him. Yeah, I was a little disappointed with the reveal finally of Jack's box. I was like, oh, it's a gun. Okay. And yeah, I mean, he basically, when he uses it, he commands it to be at 1/100 strength, which is like, okay, that at 100 strength, it was able to take out the Aegean. So yeah, that's pretty powerful. So yeah, at 100%, I can see it taking out the carrier, but it was just a little, there was just so much build-up, and I just felt a little let down with that, but it's all right. Although I am glad that there's still a little bit of mystery attached to it. Like you said, he calls it Mayumi, which, did you read the Jack Hawksmoor miniseries?
Yes, I did.
Okay, because I was going to ask you if that was from there, because I haven't read that one.
It sounds familiar, but it was a while ago. I should have looked it up, actually.
Well, nobody on the board said anything about it yet, so I don't know. We'll see. And yeah, the thing with the high was cool. I mean, the thing about the high, I don't know if you just picked up the Authority and you've only been reading since this team took over and you've read the high, there may not be as much of an impact for you because, obviously the high story began, way back in Warren Ellis's run. But even now, he'd been absent from the Wildstorm universe until 2008 when Number of the Beast happened. So he's had this huge 2-year arc leading up to this moment, so I think that's more for people who've been following it for a long time, because I'm not sure if a newer reader would get the same impact of that story without, basically you'd have to read Number of the Beast and then you'd have to follow Stormwatch PhD until it ends, and then you follow the Authority if you just wanted to concentrate on him. But no, it was a good issue. What did I give this? I think I gave it an 8. So I'm still liking this series. I mean, I'm a little biased because I prefer Wildcats, but I still I'm still enjoying the Authority.
Right. Yeah, and it's a good thing that you bring up the high. I kind of breezed through that real quick, but at the end when he's making his decision and walking away from River to go save, everybody on the carrier, this is kind of the high's redemption from all that he's done. And there's been several instances throughout his existence, at least in the universe, where, he screwed up. Not necessarily on purpose, but he has a lot to redeem, let's just say. Yeah, so there is 3 solid pages, of him, taking care of River, making sure that everything's going to be all right with him, because, I mean, he is a 10-year-old kid. He's basically his father, and he's leaving him potentially forever. But yeah, another solid issue. I love what Tom Taylor's doing with this whole series. It's good, solid writing. This one was action-packed. It didn't have as much humor as the last couple, but it's really fun to see, the carrier in space. And when they first suggested that it was gonna, leave Earth, I was like, that's kind of weird. But it's been an awesome ride, and I can't wait to see where they go next.
Yeah, because we're only halfway through their run, so we still got all the way to December for the rest of it.
Yep, and I don't know if we're going to see like 2 or 3 more, big kind of things, because Mondragon was only really 2 issues, and they have a lot to do for those next 6 to bring them back, basically, because that is the intention, that they're going to be back at Earth in December.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our next review, which is Sparta USA number 5, which is written by David Lapham, the art and the cover by Johnny Timmons. Now, as all of you know, this has been the series is, I don't know which one frustrates me more, this one or Authority Lost Year, but But I will say that I wish this issue had happened about 3 issues ago. Because,
No kidding.
yeah. Because the way, I mean, it didn't necessarily have to start the series like this. I would have been fine if this would have been like issue 3, maybe even 4, but not 5 of a 6-issue miniseries. You know, we ended last issue with a cliffhanger with basically the Maestro returning, and he's got an army of Nazis with him, and they're invading Sparta. And it's like, what? You know, I mean, where did this come from all of a sudden? You know, because as if you've been listening, you've heard that, you know, Sparta is a town somewhere. They're all about football. Apparently there's magic. You know, the main character, Godfrey, you know, is red-skinned, and he controls magic, and apparently he's a very good fighter, and he's an ex-quarterback from this town. The Maestro runs this town and apparently has everybody eating out of his hand, even though there's something very weird going on in this town. And I mean, the first few pages of this, I mean, are great. I mean, it's basically, if you've ever seen like Red Dawn or any of those movies, you know, this is basically guerrilla warfare against the Nazis. You know, people going through the town and just, you know, sabotaging tanks and things like that. And it's like, where was this early in this series? I don't know if this is enough before we're done. So, I mean, I just have to wait and see how it all ends next issue. And apparently the Nazis don't worry Godfrey as much as anybody else, because they're hiding out, and, you know, he's, I guess, training Johnny, the current quarterback, to be a fighter, because that's what they seem to be doing while the rest of the town is being invaded. The art was surprising to me. It starts off really strong, but in these scenes with Godfrey, it gets a little bit weak. That was very strange. I don't know why.
I agree. It did kind of lag in certain panels.
Yeah, it's kind of like he had Godfrey's look down perfect, and then he just kind of glazed through it. I don't know how to say it. It's just like, I know it's still Godfrey because it's, you know, the red skin and everything, but it's just weird. It's like it's not. It's almost like it's not Johnny Timmons anymore drawing it, but I know it is. So, and then, you know, we move on to Ralphie, and, you know, he's going after his sister who has gone crazy and is trying to take a baby, you know, from this woman who she thought was supposed to be theirs.
That's not his sister, that's his wife.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Her name is Sissy, but...
Yeah, you're right. I was about to correct myself. Like, Sparta's weird, but it's not that weird.
yeah, but I mean, he goes, sis, come on. I mean, you can accidentally read it that way.
Yeah, okay. So it's not his sister, it's his wife.
Nice.
She's gone crazy. She's pulling a Jack Nicholson from The Shining and going after this lady with the baby with an axe. And Godfrey, I guess, had given Ralphie one of those magic berries. I don't even know what to call it. And it's supposed to help them. And this has got to be the weirdest scene in the whole comic.
I need some of those magic berries.
He wrestles Sissy to the ground and force feeds her the berries. And she goes from this rage to all of a sudden she's, you know, basically telling him, "Oh, Ralphie," and there's all these little hearts. That's what's really so weird about this. In the word balloon, there's little hearts.
That is the coolest word balloon I've ever seen.
Like, where did that come from?
It's awesome.
And the lady and the baby are standing in the background, and it looks like Ralphie and Sissy are about to make it in front of them. I mean, I'm like...
It really does.
And then we go back to Nazis. We go back to... why can I never remember the name of this girl?
You got me. What's
her
no
name?
offense, but David Lapham does a terrible job of setting up his characters.
What is her name? I don't remember.
Screw it. It's Godfrey's lover.
Anyway, yeah. It's the woman who's actually doing something too. That's why I felt bad. Because she's the one playing super spy, and she's, you know, sneaking around and getting stuff done. And I think it's funny that they're still using computer disks, by the way.
Yeah, 3.5s.
Yeah. Apparently whatever she has on that computer disk can help them, and
No. I thought it was the surveillance of Wanda from the last issue.
Okay, I don't even know anymore.
That,
All I know is she dresses up as a Nazi. She hijacks a truck. She gets all these refugees back into the woods. We have a interesting action scene where they escape from the Nazis only for her to get captured. But I think the refugees get away. So yeah, I mean, the rest of the issue is just kind of going over how they're, like I said, it's guerrilla-style warfare against the Nazis. They've occupied the town. This
is awesome to see you even try to explain this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what else. Like I said in my review, if David Lapham walked up to Wildstorm and was like, blah, 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 Nazis, and they were like, okay, yes, I would have been, yeah. And
you had me at Nazi.
Yes. I mean, well, they're the perfect bad guy because, they don't represent the German people. They are their own thing. So it's easy to turn them into a villain because they don't represent the Germans at all. They were their total separate factions. So it's like there's no fear of offending anybody when you use Nazis as a villain. So anyway, get to the end, and I guess, Godfrey's trying to lay out some sort of plan to retake the town, and we've got, I'm still looking for her name. I wish somebody would say it.
Sorry, not going to be me.
Because she's captured, and they're interrogating her, and she very cleverly tries to fool the Nazis into thinking that she's going to allow them to sleep with her, and that's her chance to get away. And here's the part that's just like way out there. Godfrey goes out in the middle of nowhere and strikes up a fire, and the maestro shows up, and they just start talking to each other like nothing. I mean, they're like the leaders of this big conflict, and they're just going to sit down and have this very, almost like a Professor X Magneto playing chess style conversation. We find out that the maestro is actually the Pied Piper of old fables of Hamlin, and I'm like, what? Where did that come from? Why is the Pied Piper in this comic, and why is he blue, and why is he leading Nazis? I don't know anymore. All I know is that the girl who will not be named shows up at the end and gets shot by Wanda McLean. And that's our big cliffhanger.
We have to get Lapham on for this last issue because someone needs to explain this to us.
No. I don't think he wants to talk to us.
I mean, maybe we would like it more if we had a freaking clue.
And I've told all of you exactly what happened. See, this is the difference. I'm not sitting here and bashing it. I'm just telling you what happens, and that I don't understand what's happening. And by next issue, based on the cover of next issue that I've seen in solicits, I assume we'll have some sort of final showdown between Godfrey and the Maestro. And other than that, I don't know. It's just, I just don't see why we had to have so much setup in this series. Honestly, I mean, this could have happened 2 or 3 issues ago, and it would have been so much better. I mean, all this stuff where I skipped through, and you were saying that you're having fun listening to me explain it. That's a bunch of issues right there. All that guerrilla style. I'm serious. All that guerrilla war style stuff. That would have made great issues. And I don't even want to know what's the deal with Ralphie and Sissy. I don't know. I mean, at first I thought it was just to show the whole thing about the babies and how in Sparta they really think that the stork brings them, and that's the whole thing, is that, only select couples get them, so that's what drives Sissy crazy, that she can't be given a baby. It's not that she can't have a baby, because they have no idea that babies can be made. So,
yeah, I mean, we're gonna have a lot more to talk about whenever that issue number 6 finally hits the stands and we can, breathe Sparta in as a whole. But to me, this issue should have been issue number 1. Even how, all the voiceovers are done, this would have been an amazing issue number 1. You keep even saying this should have been an issue way before. The first 4 issues are pointless in my mind. It's not the setup. This issue is the setup. If this was issue number 1, he could have gone and explained a few more things in later issues. But this is doing nothing to, close off this story. This isn't a build-up issue in my mind. This issue should have been set up at the beginning. And you even said, this issue doesn't even feel like Sparta. It's a completely different book. At least you did in your written review. I mean, this is like reading an entirely new book, which is why I feel like this should have been issue number 1. Because this actually sets up the craziness that's ensuing. I mean, he could have explained some of it in detail earlier, but we have all that stuff going on with Ralphie and Sissy in issue number 1, and it's what's the point? What was the point of all of that?
Yeah. No, the only reason I don't say that this should have been the first issue is because in remembering the first issue, I know why he wanted to set up Sparta the way he did. Why he wanted to give the town that feel and all that stuff. And that was fine for the first issue or 2. It's just not for the first 4. That's my argument. Is that we didn't need to know all about Sparta for 4 issues. We could have just gone 1 or 2 and then jumped into this. I mean, I liked this issue. I mean, I only gave it a 6, I think, just because I was so frustrated about the earlier stuff. But I was just like, where were you? Where you been? Where have you been?
I'll stick with 5. We'll just leave it at that. It's not terrible. If I gave it a 1, 2, or 3, then you could complain. But all right, shall we move on?
We shall.
The horse is dead. X-Files 30 Days of Night, number 1. We've been looking forward to this a long time. I had my interview with Steve Niles. Was that last episode? Man, time flies.
It was episode 6.
Okay, good. Anywho, this one debuts for the first time at $3.99 for Wildstorm. Is this right? This is the very first Wildstorm release at $3.99?
Yeah, I think so. As far as Wildstorm U and creator-owned titles, yeah. I think some of the other ones may have already started at $3.99, like the licensed stuff.
Yeah, well, this is split with IDW, so maybe there was something else going on there. But anyways, this one's at $3.99, so ouch. But
yeah.
You'll see. Maybe worth it. This one's written by Steve Niles and Adam Jones, and the art is by Tom Mandrake. There were several cover variations, one by Andrea Sorrentino, one by Tom Mandrake, and one by Sam Keith.
The Andrea one is my favorite.
That's the one that we have posted, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's perfect for this.
I haven't actually looked at the other two, so. Anyways, so this story opens on Wainwright, Alaska, and it is the second week of darkness. Now, I'm going to explain this issue as briefly as possible because if any of you have ever watched X-Files in the past, it's very dialogue heavy and they go into a lot of detail. And for reviewing sake, you don't really need to know it. You just need to know what's going on. So this may seem brief, but there's a lot to this issue. This issue opens on a plow truck driver, and his name is Henry Lee Brown. Patches is his nickname. And he has spent the last 45 years of his life in Alaska. And the only time he's spent outside of Alaska was a small stint with the National Guard and his honeymoon. Other than that, he likes the North, and he likes the isolation, I guess. And Patches is driving along because, he just wanted to get away from the kids and the wife and spend some time plowing and collecting his thoughts. And wouldn't you know, he comes across a gruesome scene out in the middle of nowhere. And there are, I believe, he comes into all this wreckage of trucks and craziness. But what he finds is this 40-foot pole with 16 bodies up on top of the pole. And they're decapitated. And all the decapitated heads are at the base of the pole. It's pretty freaky. Right up X-Files alley. So, he radios in to try to get somebody from dispatch out there. And then we cut to Agent Mulder and Scully. And they're on the scene. And they are basically, coming together to see what the heck's going on. Now, they're used to seeing weird stuff like this, but it obviously freaked out the driver, and there's always jurisdiction issues when, they come in and the FBI comes in, and then you have local authority. So we have another agent, French, that comes in, and there's a lot of good humor between him and Mulder. And apparently they don't like each other very much. And Scully has to be the go-between between those two. But, they look at these bodies. It's a really interesting display how they're up there like that. They're stuck to the posts. And, they thought that they were bound up there. But due to, the sweat or the moisture from the bodies and the freezing cold temperatures, they're actually stuck to the post like a tongue on a flagpole, like that you would see in, that you would do in the winter, or you would see in, what was that, A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
So that's really cool, actually, because, those bodies weigh a lot, but must be pretty darn cold up there. So, everybody's discussing what may or may not have happened, and, Mulder and Scully, talk to Patches, and, we find out that, one of the heads that he saw at the base was, his friend that he had just seen or just had drinks with the night before. He's pretty upset about that. And he also says that, he's seen some pretty bad wrecks in his past, his long tenure as a driver, but he's never seen metal twisted up quite like that. It's quite an interesting scene for them. All the workers are trying to get the bodies down to thaw out, and so they can examine them, and it's cool. You could see this being an X-Files episode, and being really intrigued by it. It reads very well, and the art just goes along perfectly with it. And so then we move on to Patches driving home from the scene, and he was driving out of frustration from his family and his wife, and he just wanted to get away at first before he came onto the scene. And now he's driving home, and he can't think anything better than being with his family. He can't wait to hug and kiss his kids, and it even says make love to his wife. And he really has found a new appreciation for them after seeing all those bodies, and it probably could have been him. And he makes his way home, and he can't wait, and he's like, why are the lights out?
Not good.
Yeah. He goes, honey, kids? And the very last page is his two kids and his wife on the dining room table, their heads on a platter, their bodies seated on the table around them, or around the table, and all the vampires, their mouths dripping with blood.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is a great setup issue. It's fantastic.
No, it really is. I was just a casual X-Files viewer. I always really enjoyed it when they were doing the alien conspiracy stuff. Kind of got away from it whenever they did. And but 30 Days of Night, I have read the first couple of trades, and I really like that series a lot. The cool thing about 30 Days of Night is that it's more the situation than it is any particular characters. Obviously it has to be that time of the year in Alaska for this story to take place, for the 30 Days of Darkness. Because the vampires, as far as I've seen, they keep changing every series. So if there's any, they don't name any of the ones in here, but if there's any that are here that are from any other series, I wouldn't know yet just by looking at them. So that's pretty cool that for that aspect of it, you're really just putting the story in that setting. And who knows? I don't know which other characters survived other than from the trades I've read. The sheriff's wife is still there from that storyline. But we'll see if she shows up. I doubt it because you said they're in Wainwright and she's in Barrow, I think was the name of the town she was in.
Got me.
But
unfortunately, I didn't get to read any 30 Days, sadly.
Oh yeah, no, you should try to read at least the first one. The first one, still the best out of the two that I've read.
Right. Steve called me out for it, by the way.
Yeah. Steve Niles, I've noticed, is really good at writing characters. That's why this whole thing for Patches Brown, the truck driver, for his story to bookend this issue is very clever. And I will say that between Steve Niles and Adam Jones, who's from the band Tool, by the way, for those of y'all who don't know, mm-hmm. The writing is seamless. It's like I can't point at these scenes and be like, oh, Steve Niles did that one. Oh, that doesn't sound like Steve Niles, so it must be Adam Jones. It all just flows together very nicely. At first, I was thinking of this as an X-Files episode, but this would probably be more like a movie. It's just a bigger scale. When Patches comes across the trucker graveyard, that's just a big epic shot, and the reveal. Everything is laid out to me like storyboards in a movie. It's like when he goes to the pickup and just happens to hit the lights, and that's when he first sees that pole of bodies you were talking about. It's just like that's exactly how I would picture it, if this was a movie.
I agree and I disagree with that, only because, like, in the movie there's always this silly setup where they have to get each other to go back out.
Where they do what?
They have to go get each other to go back out to a scene. In the last, movie, Scully really had to pull on Mulder to get him to go, see what had happened.
Mm. I see what you're
Whereas
saying.
this one, they're together and they're going out,
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's the thing too. Because I felt like that sounded like both of them. It sounded like Scully and Mulder to me. The dialogue.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, of course, I was definitely, picturing their voices from the show in my mind when I'm reading it. So that made it much more fun. So, if you're an X-Files fan, obviously this is definitely going to appeal to you because, there hasn't been any new X-Files stuff since the movie and the other Wildstorm comic that they did, for 30 Days of Night fans. Here's this world again. They just put Mulder and Scully in it, and this story so far is, really cool. I love that ending shot. It's just so gruesome. But it's great, a great way to end the first issue. I gave it an 8. I think it's on its way to greatness. I think it's going to be a really fun series.
Yeah, I also gave it an 8. I can't wait to read the rest of this. And, you guys probably don't know, but Joe and I had always said, we're going to do all the Wildstorm universe titles and all the creator-owned stuff. Well, this isn't creator-owned. It's more licensed property. And we weren't really going to review the licensed property, well, mostly due to budget and reading time, basically. But, we both made a little promise. I probably kind of pushed it, but I said, hey, Steve Niles is, going around with his signing tour for Mystery Society. If we can get him on our show, we'll do his book. Well, we got him on the show, so we're doing the book. And I'm really glad that we are, because this was an awesome issue. I also gave it an 8. It was a really cool read. It did feel like Mulder and Scully, and you are in that 30 Days of Night world right off the bat. And 5 more to go. It's going to be a sweet ride.
Yeah. Yeah. And the cool thing, I mean, I consider it's half creator owned, because
Right, exactly.
he did start off like that, which funny thing is that 30 Days of Night came out the year that X-Files ended. So I guess it was just kind of an issue with timing why this never happened before until now.
Well, I don't think anybody thought of the two worlds together, but man, it makes a great peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah. So, all right, we'll go ahead and move on to our last book, which is The Authority of the Lost Year, number 10. The story is by Keith Giffen and Grant Morrison, and is written by Keith Giffen, with art by Brandon Badeau, and the covers by Gene Ha. And, we don't have any special pick of the week or surprise of the week, but this would definitely be the surprise of the week for me. And I think for you, too.
Absolutely.
I think for a lot of people. We've talked about Lost Year, and, it's another series that, we've just been frustrated with because it just has not been that great overall. I mean, it's had its moments, but just when you look at it as a whole, it's just not been a very good series. And it's just... part of it has been that the Authority has gone to these different realities, and some of them had really good setup and then no payoff, or very weak payoff. And some of them have just not had a good setup, and then so of course the payoff was just equally as bad. But this one, two things. This is a very strong issue, as we're going to get into, but the other thing is that I know that it wraps up next issue. So it makes me very sad, but at least I expect it this time.
No, we have 2 issues. It goes to 12. Right?
Yeah, but I'm talking about this particular arc is not...
Oh, yes.
It's only going to be 2 issues long. I would love for it to be longer, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's just start talking about Brandon Badeau's art, because that is what makes this issue for me. For those of you who've been following Wildstorm, you've seen his art in the Dane Loyalties backup story, which was in the early World's End issues, which you can find in the Wildstorm After the Fall trade paperback. And he also did Authority number 10, which was kind of like I don't want to call it a filler issue. It was like a prelude, I guess, to the second part of DNA's Authority arc. And he did an entire issue, and it's just amazing. I mean, I don't know if Johnny Wrench also colored his previous works, but between the art and the coloring here, I mean, it's got that kind of like a watercolor look to it, and it's just incredible art. This is a world where the Authority, basically, for those of you who read the Authority Revolution, right before that was Coup d'etat, where the Authority basically took over the U.S. And, they had control of it for a while, and then during the Authority Revolution, they lost control of the U.S. The Wildstorm continuity continued. This is basically saying, what if they took control and kept it? And that is a really cool premise. Now this is kind of one of those, okay, we've taken over the world, now what do we do? We open up with the alternate Midnighter, which Chris Stryker dubbed the Red Nighter, which I thought was funny. Some of the designs, like for Midnighter here, are just great. I mean, he's got this kind of like Nazi uniform thing going on. He's got the Midnighter symbols kind of cleverly, put here and there, and they're just letting him know that they've detected another Authority and they need to be captured, which of course the Authority they're referring to is our Wildstorm Authority. And they're discussing they've come to another Earth, and it's like, well, this is not ours, so basically let's just get out of here. But before they have a chance to do that, they are surrounded by a bunch of ships, and instead of fighting their way out, they decide to surrender, which is very uncharacteristic of them, but apparently they have their reasons this time. And they're surrounded by some troops who have some very familiar looking rose tattoos on their heads. And this is the kind of detail that Brandon puts in here that it's just like, I mean, the detail in each of these guys is just amazing to go through and to detail the way that these tattoos are on them, and it's just. I'm probably going to use the words incredible, amazing, and awesome a lot. Just talking to his art, and forgive me for my lack of adjectives. But another surprise is we get to see the Doctor from Warren Ellis's run in here. Of course, it's an alternate Doctor, but it's how do you say his name? Thorndike is his last name. I don't know. You say Jerome but it's the Doctor with the cool red glasses.
But he's not new to us.
Yeah, but it's cool to see him again, even if it's an alternate version of him. And so the authorities taken to an Antarctic detention facility, and this is to me where the story starts getting epic. I mean, it's just one issue we're dealing with this story, but this is where it takes its turn for me. Basically, Jenny Quantum starts talking to this Earth's grunge, and he's obviously older here, and he's you see him with a lock of hair that's black and purple, which is obviously from Free Fall, and you're wondering what in the world happened to her. Why does he have that? And he looks all beat up and scarred, and you got Majestic in another cell holding his armor, which I think is funny they let him keep his armor. I wonder if it's to taunt him. Interesting note, Majestic has a whole bunch of tattoos on him, but you can't really make out what they are, but I'd be really curious to see what the story behind that. But anyway, then we basically get this retelling of the Authority Revolution, and you get Brandon illustrating key moments in Wildstorm's history, like the Authority versus the Americans, and their encounter with Jacob Kriegstein, and when they take over the United States, and this time, like I said, the difference is they keep control. Even goes on to show how they were able to take out any of the other heroes who were trying to stop them. And look what happened to my man Grifter. He got shot. What did I tell you? He probably tried to shoot Midnighter in the back of the head or something. Anyway, so yeah, so you got all the survivors in this detention center, and of course, like I said, it includes Grunge, and we saw Majestic, and Midnighter's over here talking to an alternate Voodoo who looks beautiful, by the way, drawn by Brandon. And again, with her tattoos and everything, it's just great. The alternate Jenny Quantum finds it very suspicious that this Authority surrendered without a fight, but apparently she's the only one who's concerned about that. The Wildstorm Midnighter figured us out that his alternate version probably put a failsafe in this prison just in case they captured the wrong one, and he was right. And we get to see Jackson King in his boxers, which I'm sure lots of fans were waiting for. We see an alternate King. See an alternate version of King in his boxers. I'm telling you, they let him keep their armor just to taunt them, because his armor's in there too. But they basically initiate a huge prison break, and then we get to see the leader of the gang we saw earlier, and it's the alternate version of Rose Tattoo, and it's one of the most badass looking versions of Rose Tattoo that I've ever seen. I mean, if I had any complaint about this issue, it's that the fight between her and the Ultimate Midnighter, the panels are too small. It's like I want to zoom in, I want to click, I want to use my iPad to click and zoom in, and I want to see all his detail.
Yeah, and the panels might be small, but there is an insane amount of detail. Like, those had to have been full panels that they just scaled.
Oh, they were. I mean, if you go back and look at the Bleed, the blog, the Wildstorm's blog, they had some of these up, and they were bigger. I know they were bigger, especially these last few scenes where she defeats him, because it's like, there's no way. There's no way. I was like, why did you have to shrink it down? Just a few more pages. Just make it a 24-page comic, I mean.
I know. I want a poster of like 5 of those panels.
And it's pretty cool that she says the only reason she beats Midnighter is because, since she's the spirit of death, there was no way he was going to win. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty cool concept. And as she's giving him a death kiss, I guess you could say, you see a rose sprout on her back in her tattoos, and it has Midnighter symbol on it. And I was like, wow. So basically the heroes, initiate a jailbreak, and you get to see some interesting alternate versions. Like you get to see the alternate where it works, where apparently there's a female Grail in their group, and just little nods here and there. I see Tumbleweed and some of these other ones I didn't recognize. But
there's Slag back there
is he?
even.
Oh yeah, you're right. There he is. Yeah, I was trying my best to see who I could see. And then we end with an interesting discussion amongst the Wildstorm Authority, because they're basically arguing that this authority of this world just did what all of them have been thinking all along. Because Midnighter admits that he's been thinking about a facility like this for a long time for their I guess superpowered beings. This is probably the most interesting argument that the series has brought up, which is, do they decide to do what this authority has done and it'll allow them to finally take control of the world, and keep control of it too? I mean, that's the issue that happened to them. They lost control. Or do they not? So, I mean, all of a sudden, the Lost Year's making me think, it's like, where'd that come from? So, and then we end with Thorndyke basically, taunting the captured doctor, Habib of our authority, and more cameos. Not good for the characters, but good to see them. There's a Fairchild and a Freefall, and you can't see who the third girl is, but I'd assume it's probably Rainmaker if this is all the Gen 13 kids. But at least we see Freefall's alive, but she's not alive in the most ideal place, as she's basically one of Thorndyke's sex slaves. And interesting thing, it ends with Thorndyke asking Habib to kill him. And then we get it to be continued. And like everybody else on the board talked about, they went back and reread and just flipped through and looked at the art again and just, where did this issue come from? Where did this come from? Where have you been? Another one. This is the episode of Where Have You Been? For at least two of the books. I'll let you gush about it for a while.
Yeah. This rating may be inflated because of the suckfest that was the last two issues, if not further than that. But I gave this thing a 9. Badow's art is just, oh man, it just makes you melt. It's so freaking good. And yeah, the discussion at the end really summed it up. I mean, apparently they did think far enough back that this was all going to make sense. We had to go through some craziness, and with that discussion, I actually accept that ridiculousness that we had to read through. And I think if this was put in a trade where all 12 of these were together, it would be a lot stronger, but they've already split it, so that's not going to happen. Hopefully it'll hold strong for the last two.
Yeah, at least for number 11. I mean, 12, whatever. I mean, I don't really care anymore. I'm just glad that at least these two could be good.
It was fantastic. It was ridiculous. Like you said, where did it come from?
Issue 10 of a 12-issue series is not the time to get your groove.
Yeah, right. And to sum it all up, because they're kind of like bringing it back together,
Yeah, no, I gave it an 8, but that's because I'm expecting to be blown away next issue. Just, if nothing else, by the art.
Well, I think that also helped to inflate mine, because that's a crazy number to put next to this.
I know. I think the highest I've given is maybe a 7. I don't think I've gone higher.
All right. So, other Wildstorm releases for the last 3 weeks. We have on June 30th, Dante's Inferno trade released. And that should encapsulate 1 through 6 of that. And Gears of War number 12 came out. Resident Evil number 5 of 6 came out. And I know that's been long awaited. And I know others have wanted to know when 6 is coming out. Well, It's not solicited, and Wildstorm won't solicit it until it's done and ready, so just hold your panties on. It's coming.
Continue.
Nobody's gonna respond to that guy on the board, so I'll just let him know. Listen to the podcast. It's not gonna release until they solicit it. All right. Releases for July 8th. Now, this was Thursday because of Independence Day. So it was Absolute Planetary book number 1.
Yay.
Everybody go out and get it because it'll probably sell out again like the last ones did. Tom Strong and the Robots of Doom number 2 released. And for July 14th, we have Absolute Planetary book number 2.
Double yay.
Go get that one as well.
It's only going to put you out somewhere between $75 and $100 depending on where you buy it from. I mean, come on, you guys don't need that money.
Right, but if you don't get it now, you're going to have to fork over $200 on eBay. Astro City Silver Agent number 1 of 2 released. Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash, the Nightmare Warriors. I guess that's a trade.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fighting.
A lot of groovy fighting.
Yeah. Here's my boomstick. Anyways, and Free Realms number 11 of 12 released.
And just to let some of y'all know, I will be at San Diego Comic-Con. Be looking for me, especially on Saturday. I'll be wearing a Wildstorm Addiction t-shirt. And, of course, you'll see me at the Wildstorm panel. So drop on, tell me hello, and hopefully you'll have something good to say about the podcast.
Hey, you got on the panel?
No, not officially. I'll be like watching the panel.
Oh.
Pretending that I'm on it.
That's how you made it sound that you would be in the panel. That's pretty cool.
I should have left it at that. That way they'd ask, "Where's Joe?" And I'd be like, "I'm right here. I'll go sit down next to Jim Lee." You know.
You are a lucky son of a gun. Enjoy it. And if there's any Wildstorm freebies, you better grab a stack of them because I need one.
All right. Yeah, I don't think Chris Stryker awarded any this year, so but I'll definitely look out for some.
And get them signed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very demanding.
I'm going to say, you and all my other friends, I'm going to come back with a separate suitcase just of stuff, you know.
And ask Tim Seeley why he blew me off.
He didn't blow you off.
Yeah, I'm calling you out, Tim. You heard it here now.
Anyway, we hope you and Tim Seeley and everybody else will keep listening. So you guys take care, and we'll be back with you after San Diego Comic-Con. Hopefully we'll have a lot of good news to talk about. So good night, everybody.